Thank you for inviting me, and too kind. We're working on this ARISE project. You're welcome to take a folder here. And my presentation today is going to be looking at how BIM and blockchain are beginning to interlace. And I can also tell you that an awful lot of what I'm hearing here, where you're working on standards, where you're working on implementation, where you're working on how it will happen, blockchain will begin to overtake that and make it happen seamlessly, just like all the apps you have on your phone. You don't know how Google Maps work, but you yet take it and use it. And so apps is basically blockchain 3.0. And 80% of the apps are implementing blockchain. So it's not the big box you see in the corner. It is in actual fact with us, and we're implementing it, and we will see it happening seamlessly over the next 3-4 years. So this is called a solution looking for a problem, and it's looking at how blockchain is going to alleviate these processes that we're doing currently. Don Tapscott wrote a very accessible book on blockchain revolution, and in it he talks about it's a trust protocol. So just as we talked about collaboration is about trust earlier, this is key to how we're going to see how things will dovetail and help us all work seamlessly better. Back in 2006, the American Institute of Architects had a meeting where the famous Tom Main said, "You're going to cherish change or perish. If BIM is not embraced, you're going to die." And that was the beginning of where I took it on in 2006 at the school. We dropped AutoCAD and moved over to Revit. We were harried for it. People said we don't need it. Our students were not coming out. They were coming out into very aggressive environments, but now we can't get our students back. They're being pulled out. We can't get them back to 6. Where I want to take this is if you go back to the Eurotunnel, we work on small margins, and the margins are far too small in construction. And so back when they're doing the Eurotunnel, the bankers who were funding it wanted a fixed price. The contractors who were bidding says, this is no way a fixed price. We need to get the commission. It's an introductory price. It's a promoter's price. And so what you had was this disconnect where one was expecting, I'm getting all this for this money, and the other saying, we're in the door, now we're going to suck you dry. That is the wrong way of working, but that's how construction works. And that's the beginning of how do we address this? How do we make our margins bigger so we get the money we require? I was at a conference a few months back where it was complained that the architectural and building part will always cut each other to get the project, whereas the MEPs and all those that work with systems, that's the price of it. You take it or leave it. There's no way of working, and it has an element of truth in it. So what blockchain will bring to the table is it will allow you to track and trace. It is a ledger, so it will take every transaction that's happened and it will record where it happened so you can see what it's about. And lastly, and this is where it gets very interesting, we now have a mechanism where it might actually reward good practices. Now, what do I mean by that? If we look at what happened with data and the abuse of data, we have, I can't remember her name now, but she was the whistleblower at Facebook, how they were using and manipulating and abusing our data. We have to get that back, and we have to make it profitable for us. What happened to Carolyn? They went bust because they hadn't control over their money and what they were doing. So data is a commodity. Therefore, it has a value. And so what we have to do is incentivize that proceed or protocol. I'm going to pick my first 3 gentlemen here in the front row. You are always the cheapest when you tender for work. You're the architect who, if you want me, you're going to pay. And you're the guy that's going to give me the building that I need for the next 20 years because it's going to be sustainable, carbon, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. You bid on the work, who gets the job? Every time. That's the way we're built, and we've been seeing earlier today in various presentations, we are not good at this. So what blockchain will do is it will begin to give us the attitude that if you were going to give me my building and it's going to save me 20% for the next 20 years, blockchain can then look at the energy bills or be monitored and censored in the building, and after 1 year, it can say, you delivered. Your building saved us 20% on what a lead building with the same specification house. Ka-ching, blockchain can now pay you 5% for giving me the building I needed. It's all contracts. So for the next 20 years, I'm getting my pension being put into the Bahamas or wherever it is I want to go. We don't realize this, we don't deliver for this, there's too much at handover, we're gone. It's BIM level 2, we're not looking at BIM level 3. As Mike correctly said, when we look at where the energy and the carbon is compared to what, it should be the other way around. And this is a method that will get us there, and it will slowly come. We're beginning to see it happening in Denmark, I could say. So if you're going to have a reward, what is the reward? If you have a Bitcoin, the reward is it has a finite life, and so as they get rarer, they get more in value, they go up and down. We are looking at here with our Arise project to implement a cert coin, so that as you learn stuff, it begins to put coins in your pocket. And so if you go to a job interview, you're looking at, I've got 50, you've got 2. There's more odds that I'll get the job because I'm more incentivized. I've done the donkey work to get there. Where this is coming from, and I like this slide because I liken this to blockchain is going to be the oil that greases the cogs. BIM was the ether that made collaboration possible. If you go back to the Middle Ages, a barber surgeon was the guy who went out into the field after the battle, and if you needed your leg amputated, 3 guys held you down, and as you roared, he did the business. Fast forward, I think the next slide is fast forward. Fast forward to aesthetics, when ether came. Suddenly you could put the patient out, the surgeon was more calm, he could proceed, and it was a new lease of life for surgery. Today, doctors still don't like surgeons. If you go to a hospital, the surgeon is called Mr., the doctor is called Doctor. It's the surgeons who are making the money. It's to debate over a Guinness later, as somebody here said. So with data being a commodity, we're looking at how can we address all these things. And this is where blockchain will help us in that, because it gives value to your whole process. So without value, there's no improvement, and things just sit and die, yeah? If we look at the way buildings used to be, back in the 19th century, the house stood up. It didn't keep the heat out very well, but it kept the wind out, it kept the rain out, but it wasn't the best. But that's the houses we have from the 19th century. When we came to the 20th century and oil was dirt cheap, we just blew it into the house and we just let everything go out the windows and didn't care. 21st century, we're having to look at how that energy is, because fossil fuels are a no-no. We have to be more solar involved. And so we're going through this phase, and this is where we're going now. So the idea of a reward is very important. Performance is also, because by performing well, you get mutual respect and trust, and you're getting all these things that are not, we're in too many silos currently, is my argument. But we're looking to, and this is what we do at the school. This is a group. Normally we're 4, this is 5. And so they do group work from the beginning of the semester to the end. And they go in and they collaborate in a BIM model. They give out tasks. One of them will check that it's all compliant, but they're doing what is needed when they get out into the big bad world. And we have very good success with that. Arabs have also said we're limited by the existing data processing and exchange methods, and that we need something that will be the oil that smooths those cogs. We are currently using common data environments in our teaching. We're currently out surveying a building, and when I go back here on Monday, I expect that building to be fully modeled with a point cloud, with condition reports. One group will take external walls, one group will take windows and toilets, and so there'll be a condition report, and the building will be the existing building with a CO2 takeoff on it, and that will be the position where they go in and do the conversion or the regeneration or whatever it is they're going to do for the rest of the project. So, and we're using, Dalux is the data environment we're using, but it could be any of them. But they're beginning to use and put things in one place, and there's no repetition, there's no nothing, and the kids understand that. They're going out into the industry, telling industry, this is where you have to be, this is where you have to go. So we come back to this low profit margins. Nobody has yet mentioned, and I don't know if I should go there, but Terminal 5 at Heathrow, it was built by John Egan, who came out with the Egan report and the Latham report back in the late 90s. And John Egan was the head of British airports authorities when they were building Terminal 5. And so what he said, he told them all, I'm taking you all in as subcontractors, I'm going to be the controller. And he sat around with his board members and he says, I forget what the sum was, but notionally we're going to say Terminal 5 was going to cost £40 billion. Now, everyone around the table knew that in 5 years, by the time they realized that, they would have spent 80. Am I right, Michael? And so John Egan's comment to him was, would you accept 60? So they went out and they told the tenderers, and that was Richard Rogers and Arups and all the we're employing you as agents to work here. And so they told all the contractors and everybody on site that if you deliver this on time and to budget, there is a golden nest egg of $20 million for you to share. And they were looking at each other, and then usual practices snuck in. The electrician hasn't done a wall. The guy comes to put the dry plaster on. Does he do it or does he stop? First time he did it because he thought, I get paid twice. The next time he was told, you've just taken a part of my bonus. And so they began to talk. And it is a building of its size. It was on time and to budget. Baggage handling didn't work, but the building did. I rest my case. Also, it hasn't been mentioned much today, but this is when we get over BIM level 2, we have to start looking at the sustainability and the 17 goals, which are my little badge. Those are probably most relevant to construction is 6, 7, 9, 11, 12, and 13. You could make an argument for each and every one of all 17, but I'm not going to go there. And what I'm going to finish with, and I thank you for your attention, is that if cement was a sovereign country, it would be the third worst carbon dioxide polluter behind China and the US. There's a product in North Dakota called Biomason, and what it's doing is instead of using cement, it's using bacteria to calcify the sand and rich nutrient water to give us a clinker concrete. So things are moving, and that's totally CO2 friendly. So on that note, I say thank you.